Hi, I'm Amredimundo, your one and only man of world, and this is the Zelda Universe podcast. Today we are going to talk about, well, you know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Hyrule Warriors, which, if you haven't been on the internet recently, is a newly announced Zelda spin-off game made by Tecmo Koei, and it's kind of like a hack and slash Zelda game.
Yes.
And joining me today is my co-hosts.
Hi, I'm Shona.
You can
And I'm Josh Jepson. Hi.
Hello, welcome, and yeah, I'm just gonna throw the question right at you guys. What did you think?
Well, when I first saw it, because I didn't watch the Nintendo Direct, but I watched it afterwards, and I watched the trailer afterwards, and it's almost an initial shock to see Link just hacking and slashing around. It's kind of a different environment for him, I think.
See, my first thought when I saw Link was, he looks good in that scarf. I love
Yeah,
the
the
scarf.
the scarf is amazing. I love that's also like one of the first things that I saw, and I was like, yes, yes.
It does look good on him.
Yeah, and I really like his design overall. He has like one shoulder pad too, um, and like it looks good. I really wouldn't mind, even if in the mainstream installments of the Zelda series, that he was uh, using some gear like that, like a
Yeah, it
scarf.
makes him
Or
look a little bit
Yeah.
more older or mature.
yeah,
Or
ironically, because
cold.
he looks really young in this, or like really, he looks really Japanese pretty, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
probably the style, right? Because it's a Dynasty Warriors crossover. And
Yeah.
though none of us have played Dynasty Warriors, we're not entirely sure uh, what those games are really like. But I take it that that's kind of their style.
Makes sense, and
Yeah.
I mean it's not far from Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess
No.
looks.
No, not at
No.
all. Definitely had a very Zelda feel to it.
Yeah.
I'd like to say real fast, King Dodongo was in that trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
King Dodongo, and it was like seeing a fully rendered, huge 3D King Dodongo kind of blew my mind.
It was, yeah, I can totally see that because we haven't seen him since Ocarina of Time,
Right.
and I think there were some Dodongo-like gecko enemies in Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
Uh,
But they weren't big and fantastic like King Dodongo.
it looks really cool, and I went back because I thought like, well, he looks a bit different from Ocarina of Time, but then I looked at the artwork for him from Ocarina of Time, and it's like, well, this is pretty spot on actually.
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I didn't think he looked all that different from the one in Ocarina of Time. I think the only reason he looks different is because in Ocarina of Time he's got all kinds of polygons
Yeah.
that you can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
see.
Like he has these like very standing out crystal shoulders now.
Yeah.
I think that's what does it. People said that he looked a bit weird or awkward.
Maybe it was
I
just
don't
the
think so.
environment. Because
I
it
don't
seemed
know.
pretty chaotic because you've got all the other enemies all around, and then here's King Dodongo just like rolling his way through the field there. So
Yeah, but let's just talk about kind of the setting for this game because I think that ever since I joined CU, I've seen these threads about they should make like a war game with every like hundreds of enemies running around and Ganondorf is there and like the Dodongos are there and rolling around and it's like war all around. It's gonna be awesome.
that was kind of bits of Twilight Princess in a way.
A little bit, yeah, because they had those parts where you're riding on your horse and defeating bokoblins or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just I know that a lot of fans have wanted to see a bit more action-packed, war-like setting, and it looks like they're getting it.
It's just interesting to see a crossover. It's just interesting that Nintendo is kind of being a little bit looser with their characters again. You know, because it's been since because they've had bad experiences with that in the past, as I'm sure you all are well
Gee,
aware.
you don't say.
I just wonder.
and since then they've kind of held their characters close to their hearts.
Yeah, well, they've done a few like
I mean, Link's
like Soul
crossbow training.
Calibur, of course.
Oh,
Right. Well, okay.
yep, Soul
Link's Crossbow
Calibur.
Training was a first-party title, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. True.
The
But yeah,
closest
Soul
they've come.
Calibur was one example where they kind of gave the character away, and it actually went really well.
Yeah.
And I know that some people have been, they've been looking at that as a good example, and have been wanting Nintendo to reach out to other like developers and put Link in. Well, I think mainly other Soul Calibur games or fighting games, but just in general, entrusting Link with other companies. And of course, we have Capcom, the Minish Cap, or the Force
Right. Well,
games.
who developed Soul Calibur? And I think Soul Calibur 2 is the shining example of Link is in another game. What? So this one is the other way around though. Link isn't in another game. This is basically a Zelda game created by another company. Kind of like what Capcom did with the handheld Zelda games in the past. It's kind of like that, except that it's a completely different concept.
Yeah, it's definitely not a traditional Zelda.
It's kind of like if you've been following up on EA news, you'll know that DICE, the creators of Battlefield, they're gonna do Star Wars Battlefront.
Right. Yeah.
And that's also a very similar thing where the guys, DICE, Battlefield and Battlefront are essentially the same kind of game. Like you run around, shoot other people, and capture points.
Yeah.
So it's this way of taking a franchise and giving it to a developer to basically make their game.
Right. Like so, their version of their like Battlefield is Battlefront. That kind of thing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So Star Wars Battlefront, they give it to DICE because they essentially make a Star Wars Battlefield.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're seeing here with a developer being given the Zelda franchise to make a Legend of Zelda Dynasty Warriors.
And that kind of opens it up to do, like what other franchises could they do that with? What other Nintendo franchises could they do that with? How they could do another Zelda game in another universe, right?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
Right? Like that I think is the most interesting thing is this kind of blows the top off of it because Nintendo doesn't do stuff like this ever.
Yeah, although that's assuming this goes well. If it ends up badly, then I think we can put the lid back on. Yeah.
And I think also that whether it goes badly or good is very much dependent on how much effort they're willing to put into this. Because Link's crossbow training I talked about before, it was like it wasn't a bad game, but it was like a kind of small, easy. It's almost like a caching game.
It could have almost just been a mini game within Twilight Princess.
Yeah, kind of like that. And I feel like if they just try to make this basically a Dynasty Warriors port with Link in it,
right? Yeah,
and they don't put an effort, like they don't put in a co-op mode, or they don't put in any other playable characters. They just very straightforward, not much polish. Boom, release it. Then I think the reviews won't be all that flattering, and people are not gonna be all too keen on picking it up. But if they actually put a little effort in it and release a worthwhile product, I think it will go well.
I don't think they're gonna just make it a straight up port of a Dynasty Warriors game because they've already sort of done that with Link because Link has actually been a skin in a previous Dynasty Warriors game.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Actually, in the most recent one, Dynasty Warriors 8, he was a skin for one of the characters, and so it's not completely unheard of that this is happening.
Okay, and maybe that's where the idea to actually make Hyrule Warriors came from.
Possibly.
Oh, okay, that's a nice bit of knowledge there.
Yeah, that was a little cameo. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and of course we've seen something similar in Monster Hunter as well.
Yeah.
With Link costumes.
Yeah.
And like my experience with Monster Hunter is limited, but it's similar. Like you go and swing a big sword around and kill monsters. So
I think that's where it starts to make sense. If they just do more crossovers, I think that's kind of like that might be the future. You know what I mean? Like that idea instead of doing sequel after sequel after sequel of the games that are completely the same, combine them and see what happens.
It reminds me of a quote, an Anuma quote. Back when he made Wind Waker, he wanted fans to be like a bit surprised. Like he wanted to expand the series into areas where the series haven't gone before, and he wanted people to think, "Wait, this doesn't look like Zelda. Is it really Zelda?" And then they play it and be like, "Oh wait, it is Zelda."
Yeah.
And I think that what they might have been thinking is they might have been thinking of doing something more action oriented with Zelda, but they haven't been sure on how to do it, and they're thinking, okay, well, let's make an experiment. Let's hand it off to another developer because they know what they're doing with this sort of genre, and we'll see how it kind of turns out. And I think they do that instead of making it a part of the main franchise.
Yeah.
Just because they might not feel confident enough to do it well, or they might feel like it's too risky of a move. And I think that's also why Iwata was making it very clear in Nintendo Direct that like this is not a
main series.
A main
Zelda.
series
Well, the other reason
installment.
why he has to reiterate that is because people have been expecting and waiting to see stuff from Zelda Wii U, and then this shows up, and they don't want to they don't want to confuse everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
but I think it's a nice little bonus, to be honest, because we've still got Zelda Wii U coming at some point, which I'm hoping we might hear about next year. But in the meantime, I mean, this looks like a lot of fun. Just something to fill in the time, I guess, while we wait for the next game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And and unlike the Wind Waker, it will actually be something like really new. Not hating on the Wind Waker, love it. Just gotta like flame shield up. But I want to ask you guys a bit about what sort of content, because I mentioned briefly things like different characters, like maybe playable characters. We think we might have seen Zelda somewhere in the trailer.
I saw a screenshot that Zelda with Zelda in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are also two other models there among the soldiers that look different, that people have speculated are maybe NPCs, but also maybe playable characters.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna like, what do you want to see in terms of content, and what do you think we can expect to see?
Co-op.
Yeah.
I think that's the clear primary feature is co-op, because it kind of just suits that, right? Huge battlefield with like 4 of your buddies or whatever, just hacking and slashing.
I really hope so, because I think it would be so much more fun.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it could get repetitive if it was just single player, wave after wave after wave of enemies, and then some big bosses. But co-op would be loads of fun.
Yeah, especially if you have, because we've seen that you can have different items and also different weapons. So
and it looks like you can upgrade as well. Because, I mean, if you look at the start of the trailer, he's got, one sword, and then at the end he has the Master Sword and the Hylian Shield, so...
And we do see him opening treasure chests, so we know that he's collecting gear and stuff as things go on.
Do you think what they'll do is take the Dynasty Warriors engine and basically... while throwing in a lot of like the big battles and stuff that Dynasty Warriors has, expanding that even further and doing more with it, and bringing in some Zelda elements as well, other than just the design of all the enemies and characters.
That would be nice. I don't know if they will.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have a few things probably, like, opening treasure chests, and there might be, before you get an item, there might be a little puzzle or something like that.
Yeah, I was about to say, it'd be good if they could bring in some puzzles as well, but, I mean, this seems very action-focused, so...
I doubt that would be a thing. But, I mean, what if they introduced stuff like, I don't know, like riding Epona in Hyrule Field or something, and you're battling from the back of Epona as well.
That would be really cool,
right? That kind of bringing in some of those elements into Dynasty Warriors, that kind of universe.
Yeah, and I'd love to see some really big boss battles too. I mean, obviously we see King Dodongo, that's one boss, but it would just be really fun if we could bring back some of those classic battles, and of course it'd be awesome if we could have like Beast Ganon and all of that too.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think would be cool to have is you could actually implement some sort of dungeon elements, I feel, like in the form of traps.
Right, yeah.
So like maybe let's say like there's one of those eye switches and you can shoot it and then things drop down from the ceiling as your enemies rush
Yeah.
towards you. Things like that I think would be kind of neat elements to throw
I
in.
can see them doing kind of like a pit of 100 trials kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with significantly more enemies.
Let's just speculate a bit about playable characters, because if they're gonna be co-op, they gotta throw in some more characters.
Right.
And
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we just have the 4 links again. Different colors, or maybe different colored scarves. Actually,
different color scarves. Yeah. I don't know. Well, Link and Zelda, obviously, right? And then
would Zelda be playable
who else
though?
could they be? I think so. Why not?
Sorry, I thought in the trailer she just looked like a spectator.
yeah, you're right, and I think that having Zelda as maybe someone that either you need to rescue or kind of as this NPC that you need to protect, that might be the case. But people have been talking about, well, Sheik, for instance,
Sheik, yeah.
which and again, like I don't know if you have any better knowledge of Dynasty Warriors, but do you have different different types of characters that are playable in that game?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think
sorry.
so. I wish we knew more about Dynasty Warriors. We just don't.
Yeah,
because
if the game
one
hadn't-
thing that I thought of
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool is, what if you kind of have different, like you have Link, who's kind of like a good all-round character, but then you might have Sheik, who's more of a faster, less damage dealing kind of character, and maybe a more kind of heavy character. Let's just say Grooves, right? How awesome would that be? Who's like a bit slower.
No, he'll be the best overall character.
Yeah. And then you could also have, because someone speculated, okay, well, what if they incorporate something like versus mode, and you can actually play as some evil characters?
Yep.
So you can have Ganon, Ganondorf, and maybe Girahim, and maybe like Vati or Yuga.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah, I think like that would be pretty neat. To bring in like these different kinds of characters and actually doing some verses, like you have your army and I have my army, here's my character and here's your character.
Yeah.
So actually, if Link had an army, who would be fighting on his side? I mean, he's not really gonna have all monsters.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Well, I mean, it would just be like the Hyrule,
like some generic Hyrule guards or something. Soldiers.
Well, I mean, like Gorons and Zoras would be on his side. I was gonna say Deku Scrubs, but they're still evil. Ish. And then just the Hyrule soldiers and stuff. So he has people. He just doesn't have as many people as the enemy side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've seen the Hylian soldiers already, so we know they're in it.
Yes.
And people have been wanting to see Gorons and Zoras, but some people say that no, they're probably not going to do it. But I would think it's really neat if they could do both Gorons and Zoras, because then you have 3 races and you have 3 characters.
Yeah.
And of course, with
well, they could even
with
go
the
back
Forces
to
of Evil, you have a lot more variety. But
yeah, you could go back to Majora's Mask and have Goron Link and Zora Link.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a nice idea. I think that would actually work really well. I don't think they're gonna go that route, but it would be cool if they did, actually.
Yeah. No, I just think it's kind of a cool opportunity to bring a lot of cameos and bring back all the old favorites and just I guess I'll use a lot of nostalgia as part of it too.
Right. Well, and I think part of the reason too, as to why they wanted to do it, is bringing people into Dynasty Warriors and introducing them to Dynasty Warriors. Because I've never played it and I've never heard of it. Well, I mean, I've heard the name, but I've never seen anything from it. And now I'm kind of interested. I'm like, oh, Zelda is a part. Link is a part of that universe now, and they're doing a crossover. I want to check out their other games.
Definitely. And actually, we talked about Soul Calibur earlier, and Link being in Soul Calibur 2 is what got me into Soul Calibur. Like, I love that series.
Exactly.
Now. So, definitely. Yep.
Same here.
See, I played Soul Calibur before that happened, but I will admit that I bought the game and probably played as Link most of the time. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans have had the same experience. And you can also look at this is what Nintendo seem to be doing a lot now with other. This is how they seem to be branching out to third parties. Look at Sonic, which
Right.
is now a pretty much a Nintendo exclusive.
Sega is almost a second party developer for
Yeah,
Nintendo at this point.
yeah. Unfortunately, because yeah, I say that because I like some of Sega's franchises, but I don't think they're good developers. But we can see that Nintendo are giving them access to their franchises. Like the last DLC for Sonic Last Wars is well, it's going to be Yoshi's themed, and then there's going to be a Zelda
Oh.
themed.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think a little bit of this crossover stuff comes from the fact that Nintendo isn't doing so hot in sales right now with the Wii U and whatnot, and they really need to do something to
Yeah,
expand their look on things instead of saying close to what they've always done, which has always worked for them up until now. Doing crossovers, I think, is their way of saying, hey, third party developers, we're cool. Come use our franchises. I know you want to, and we haven't done it in the past, but here, we're gonna let you use our franchises to make your games. That way, everybody's happy.
exactly. And I think it's for third-party developers that's something really exciting because everyone who's doing video games now have grown up
Yeah,
playing Nintendo games.
playing
Yeah.
Nintendo games. Yeah.
And there's no way that you're gonna go to a developer and say, "Hey, if you could, would you want to work, on with the Mario franchise or the Zelda franchise?"
Yeah.
And they're gonna say no. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, because there's a number of developers out there, right, that have come to Nintendo asking about that, right? They're like, oh, wow, we'd really love to work with the Zelda franchise, and
Mm.
Nintendo usually shoots them down. And in a few rare cases like Capcom, um, they've actually allowed them to develop a Zelda game, and working closely with Nintendo, obviously. But
Yeah, and isn't Nintendo with this game? Isn't Nintendo also like they're working to some capacity with
um,
Tecmo?
I'm assuming they're working pretty closely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine that because it's just a way for them to. They don't have to let go of too many resources. They can have their
Yeah,
teams working on other games.
Well, that's right. And
Main
I
series
heard
Nintendo
that
games.
none of the Zelda teams are working on this. So it must be more
Yeah,
from a, overseeing type of level.
yeah,
that's fine. Like I just want some sort of quality control to go into
Oh,
it. I know
definitely.
some people have
yeah.
said, it looks a bit unpolished. I mean, this isn't the final product. We
No,
can only assume,
this is the
but
first
this
thing we've
is
seen of it.
yeah, this
Yeah.
is like probably pre-beta. Um,
Oh, I don't know. I think the game is far. Because if they're far enough along to show
it's
us the
probably
game,
yeah, it's probably pretty far, but it's I don't know. Like it does look unpolished in some ways, and some people said, well, the colors kind of clash a bit, and they should just change a couple things around to make it uh, a lot more smoother. And Nintendo's good about that.
mm-hmm.
I mentioned before that I don't think Sega are good developers, and I want to just bring your attention a bit to the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games
Mm-hmm.
series. I don't think gameplay-wise they're not very good. Like Nintendo are pretty good at making little party games like Mario Party, and they play well and they're
Yeah.
fun, and they Nintendo has got one thing down, and that's like control. One thing that Nintendo's done for me, it's Nintendo has spoiled me with
Oh,
movement controls.
I know. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. Like, when I'm playing a Zelda game and I move around, I just feel very natural. I feel like I can control Link
It's
exactly
very
the way I want it.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
Mario 2, like, it's just so... I just feel like I'm so in control of the character. And then when I go play other games, even games that people say are really good, um, like Gears of War, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I'm not... the movement controls and I just feel a bit desynced.
Yeah.
They're not that tight, and it kind of ruins the experience for me.
Yep, same. I mean, when you play a game that has, kind of shonky camera controls, you can't just press the button and refocus the camera behind your character, and even, look at the Z targeting that was brought in. I mean, how well that works. And then you get games where that doesn't work very well, and you're like, oh yes, why can't this be more like Zelda? So that's when I definitely remember how much, I have been spoiled to, be a Zelda fan.
And Nintendo has always been really, Nintendo's always been really good about that. And I feel like I'm wondering who is going to be overseeing this project from Nintendo, because there will be people, right? So
Yeah.
And the thing with Nintendo, though, right, is not all of their games are perfect, because Nintendo's such a big company and they have a lot of different development teams in Nintendo. Some of their games are below standard. For example, I've heard that the new Mario Party wasn't that great.
Yeah, well, with Nintendo, it's one of these companies that they can shove up, they can make shovelware and just make a product really fast and just get it out there, and it'll be, subpar. But when they actually try, they get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But yeah, do you have anything else to add about this game, like that you really want to get out there?
I am, for one, really looking forward to just trying it, because I think it's a new concept that I'm personally kind of interested in. Even if it's not the most fantastic game and it's not the most fantastic Zelda game, it's something different, and it's something different from Nintendo, and something different from just on the Wii U is something that they need right now. So that I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to having fun with it. I mean, I'm not going to treat it like a normal Zelda game, because it's not. But if I can have fun playing with Link and Zelda characters and, just being back in that world, having fun with some action, then, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely planning to get this, definitely to try it out.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and I think a lot of people are, where people are not looking at this as being, the next big thing, because it isn't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not looking at this as, oh, this is going to be like the greatest Zelda game ever. But it looks fun. It does. It looks like a fun thing, especially if it's co-op. I can see myself having a lot of fun with it. It's sort of like a Link's cross-bow training thing, where you play it, it's fun,
Yeah.
but it's not a real Zelda game. And I think more so than anything, because some people said, oh, this looks like it sucks, it's going to drag down the franchise, but some people say, oh, no, it looks fun, I like this.
Yeah.
I'm, more so than anything, I'm curious, and I want to know more. I want to see more, and I want to know more about it, and I'm very much looking forward to E3 2014, when we'll hopefully get to try this thing out.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, isn't this planned to release in spring? So maybe it'll come out before E3. That's what I read, yeah.
Really?
Maybe,
I thought it was holiday.
I'm mistaken. We can...
No, you might actually be right, because the Nintendo Direct was about games that were supposed to come out in the first half of the year.
Oh, interesting.
But I mean, that being said, you never know.
Well, I feel like it should come out before E3 anyway, because at E3 we're gonna hear about Zelda Wii U.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's no doubt
That's
about that.
Yeah. So whenever it'll come out, well, yeah, I'm just really interested, and I want to see more, and I want to try it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Me too.
Me too.
Yeah. So that's it for this podcast. Thanks to everybody for listening.
Thanks for having me on.
It's the holidays, so we'll be taking a break. We'll be back in next year, in 2014.
Yep.
So,
thanks for a great year.
I'll see you then. Over and out.